Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Dolfini. It is so good to see you here. This is one of my very, very favorite seminars to teach, and I absolutely love it. I know you guys have been burning up the comment section already. Man, you are a lively bunch. You are ready to get going on this. So it is good to see you. Thank you, Vicky. It's nice to see you. Glad you could make it. Let's see. Let's see. You are in Virginia Cancer Journey. Okay, so that's what you're writing about. Very good, Vicky. Thank you. Um, and that's amazing, by the way. I hope that's going well for you, that journey. Cassandra, my son's children's cosmic book. Okay. Is it comic book or cosmic book? That's what it says. It says cosmic book, and I will be assisting him. He's only 9 years old. This is his idea. He's not old enough, so I'm here for him. Okay, very good. Um, very good. Jackie from Iowa wanting to be try my hand at writing fiction. Excellent. Texas, not sure yet. That's totally fine, Stephanie. I'm glad you could join us. Twyla, let's see. Twyla Eitzen, live in Columbia, South Carolina. Either going to start by telling my story or either self-help book as I continue mentoring. Excellent, excellent, very good. And people love stories. They love stories about, journeys and overcoming and things like that. And it's very, very inspirational. So do that for sure. Sandra from Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, probably nonfiction. Very good. I'm glad you could be here. And Michelle. Okay, thank you. All right, very good. We've got a lot of people already here. Holly Greer, or Greyer. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Southern Indiana. My sister from another mister. I'm in Lafayette, so not too far from one another. Although Southern Indiana is, I think that can almost be its own state. It's so funny. You call down below I-70 and everybody sounds like they're from the deep south. It's kind of funny. I call that the Mason-Dixon Highway. Rob Campbell is here. Very good, Rob. And you were right the first time. Greyer. Okay. Near Madison. Excellent. All right. Hopefully I'm still saying that right. Very good. Well, I'm glad that you all could join us here today. So we're going to be talking about writing and publishing a book. I want to be really clear. First and foremost, let me just kind of get some ground rules out of the way. This is not going to be a book on content, right? This is going to be about the mechanics of writing and publishing. I know several of you had said, yeah, I'm really just struggling for like beginnings and endings. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But this isn't a writing course, right? This is about writing, the mechanics of writing and the mechanics of publishing, specifically self-publishing. But I will talk about some other stuff that I have learned about working with publishers as well, and whichever makes sense for you. So I just want to make sure you understood that. I didn't want to be deceptive, and I think I was pretty clear about what this was about. But some of you I've been having conversations with, and you were talking about the mechanics of writing, which again, maybe at some point I will talk about mechanics of writing, but but I just want to be clear on that. A couple of things really quick. Don't multitask. I know it's very hard to do when you're sitting in front of a computer or a phone to not multitask. Those TikTok videos will be there when you get done. I promise we're going to try to land the plane right at the top of the hour. And I know people are joining from all over the place. Mark, I'm looking forward to learning from. Oh, absolutely. Very good. No. Oh, like Greer. Oh, Greer. Yes. Sorry. I said it the right way. I said it the wrong way the second time. Okay. Very good. Well, Holly Greer, it's good to meet you. So the thing that I want to make sure of is this is about training your brain to be, to really challenge yourself to focus and teach your mind to focus. And when you have that urge to pick up the phone or check email or check voicemail, this is about training your brain. You can do it. You can do it for an hour. If you're feeling like I need to do something, stand up, step away from the computer, but stay focused. This is about training your brain for that hour, and then treat yourself nice on the other side of that hour, because this is going to be a lot and I don't want you to miss anything. However, I want to say this. There's going to be a ton of information I'm going to be passing along in this next 55 minutes, and we will be sending out replays. I'm going to be putting this up to YouTube, to my YouTube channel. I will be sending you the actual link to this. Yes, Eventbrite will, or not Eventbrite, but what am I on? StreamYard. StreamYard will be sending you a replay link, but those can easily get lost. I'm actually going to be sending you the YouTube video, and you can view this anytime you like. So I just want to let you know that this is all going to be out there again on replay. All right, so let's get to this. Again, I know how easy it is where you're starting to think like, okay, like who am I, to write a book? I don't know how to write a book. Where do I start? And not to mention, I'm afraid of criticism and all this other just head trash that shows up in our world. And it is all head trash. Someone out there needs to hear your story. And I will tell you, there's lots of different reasons to write books. Sometimes it's therapeutic. Sometimes it is to pass along a message. Sometimes it's more to pass along information. I like to write kind of a combination. I don't know if anybody has ever read my books. Most of my books are for a business audience. But I also wrap in a portion of fiction in my books, and where I bring in there's a plot line with a fictional couple or a fictional individual who's going through a struggle. So I like doing that because it's rather than just grinding your way through a book like a textbook, I always wrap in a story about Bob and Linda or Joe and Sarah or whoever. And that way they can go, oh, Joe and Sarah, oh, they're struggling with this. And then the teaching point happens to be around that thing. So I really enjoy writing that way because I think it really draws the person in. And if you want to teach someone something, tell them a story. Tell them a story about it, right? That's why parables are so popular. That's why fables are so popular, because there's a lesson in that, and it really helps people move forward. So, and it helps the plot line move forward for sure. So let's talk about what the agenda is going to be. We're going to be talking about the why first and foremost. Let me get myself out of the way because you don't really need to see my shiny dome. So let's get that. So we're only going to be talking about the why first, the things to know before you ever pen to paper or keys, fingers to keyboard. I want you to think about that. Things that we're going to be talking about in terms of the why. Then we're going to be talking about the where and all of the wheres to consider. The writing itself, we're going to be talking about some of the mechanics of writing, about where to start writing, how to write, all sorts of writing things. And then also the most important thing that you really must consider, and this is something that I just did not great. Okay. And so these are my mistakes that I have made along the way. And then finally, we're going to talk about some publishing, and just different nuances to the publishing. These are all the books that I have written. There's 8 of them there in total, and I'm working on my 9th right now called Leader Boss. And I will tell you that they are in all styles and lengths. Some of the books are as short as 40 pages. There's a book in there that's about 90 pages. There are 3 books in there that are almost 300 pages. So I have written all sorts of different types of books. Haven't really written anything around fiction yet, but like I said, I have wrapped fiction into my training or my business books just to make the plot line more interesting and to help the reader, to help carry the reader. So it's not always just like this heavy math or heavy accounting or heavy whatever else it is, because the lesson, the stories help carry the reader, right? This is my latest main book, which is called The Time Wealthy Advantage. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not here to sell books or anything. However, I do want to make an offer to you now so you can be thinking about this. I have an offer for a course. There is a free version of it, and then there's a paid version of it. The free version of it, we're gonna post links to all this stuff later. I don't want to post the links now just because you guys will multitask, right? And we're not about multitasking, right? So I'm going to post them at the end. One is it's free. It will just bring you kind of through the basics. The other part of it is really granular. So it includes the front basic part, and there is stuff at the end, which is going to get very granular on how to post and how to publish your book to KDP, how to narrate your book, how to actually format it for an ebook. Like, these are all very granular things that I had to learn. And it's very in depth. And right now I haven't even released it yet. So you guys are literally the first people that I'm telling about. And that's not like just like fancy like word speak. I'm just actually telling you. And as a result, I'm also keeping it at a very low price. So we'll talk more about it at the end. I'm not here to promote that. I just want to say it's a tool in the toolbox that I can offer you guys if you're interested. All right, let's get to it. So let's talk about the why. The why, first and foremost, for those of you who have followed me along and they know what I'm about in terms of the Viper method, I have to at least tell you about this because it's going to make more sense. This is the methodology that I use when I'm creating a business. So let me just go through this super, super quick. I'm not going to get super granular because this is more about business than it is about book writing. but it is absolutely connected. And I'm going to tell you how here in just a minute. So the Viper method is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. All of the real nuances of this, I'm going to come back to vision here in just a second, but vision is, again, basically where you want to go, right? Again, we'll come back to that. Infrastructure is the bones of the business, the desks, the chairs, the software, things like that, right? And you have to have your vision in mind first and foremost when you create your infrastructure, right? So that infrastructure you want to have in alignment with your vision. Next is process. Process is simply how you do stuff, right? It's from it's basically the tactical process, the tactical part of the process, to the strategic part of the process. And that's going to be a really important component to this. Somewhat more, like probably the vision and the strategic part of the process when we go to promote this book. Like, because again, you can write this book, nobody will buy it. Ask me how I know. That was my first book. Wrote this book and no one bought it. And I was like, ugh, that sucks, because it was like 2 years of work and no one bought my book. It was heartbreaking. So just want to let you know that the promotion piece does have to come into it, and that's why vision is so important. Execution is, again, this is about making sure you're actually executing on your plan, right? Any of the plans that you have, your vision that you have, your strategic plan. Execution is making sure that you're doing the things, the daily 5 things, no more than 5. You're not going to have a list of 27 things every day, because you're not going to get to 27 things every day. It's a maximum of 5 things that you're going to do that are going to be the needle movers every single day towards your vision. And then R is reporting. Is just simply how much are you tracking this sort of stuff. So this might be like page count per day or word count per day or something along those lines. Okay. So I know I'm approaching it through this lens right now, and you're thinking, well, I'm just writing a book. This doesn't have anything to do with the business. It absolutely does. Because the thing is, even if you were planning on writing this book to give it away, you're going to run out of money at some point to give these books away. Even if you could do that for a period of time, that's fine. And even if you truly wanted to do that, you still have to promote it. You still have to get people to want to actually take the book. And I will tell you that most times, and I'm just telling you from experience, almost selling free things is actually more difficult than selling things that people have to pay for. It's actually more difficult. And you might be thinking that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't to me either. But I'm just telling you, if I put something up for $20 and put something up for free, I will get many more people engaged in the $20 thing. I don't even know why. I've certainly got ideas behind why, but I'm just telling you, it's harder. It's almost more difficult to give away something for free. So you really need to consider that in the reporting function and tracking your metrics for what you're getting done. So let's talk about vision. Let's go back to vision, because vision is really, really important around the why you are writing this business. Vision has 2 components. It's got a personal vision and it's got a business vision. Now, the personal vision is specifically like what it is that you're doing. What is your life? What do you want for your life? That's your personal vision. And I like to think of this in the context of, like, if you were writing, let's say you were writing a 100th birthday speech. You're turning 100 years old. And what would you say to these room full of loved ones that are followed you through this journey? You're 100 years old, and now you're speaking in front of everybody, and you're giving this 100th birthday speech. That's a personal vision, right? The business vision exists to serve the personal vision, right? So when you're asking these 2 fundamental questions, your personal vision is, where do you want to go? And your business vision is, okay, great, how are we going to get there? All right. Now you might be thinking, like, well, what does this have to do with anything around book writing? I promise I'll put the fries in the bag here in just one more slide. But I want you to make sure that you're creating a personal vision first, because you could go out and write this book for a business purpose and it doesn't serve your personal vision at all, right? And the danger in that is when you create a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that sucks. I've been down that road so many times when you're doing something just for money, and it really doesn't serve my personal vision at all. So like this morning, for example, you know, I'm in a PhD program right now, and I had a final project that was due this past Sunday, and I spent like 12 straight hours on this thing. I didn't hardly get to see my family at all yesterday, but this morning we have a 3-year-old daughter, we have a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and I got to hang out with my 3-year-old for like 3 hours this morning. And, you know, just woke up with her and played dinosaurs, and, you know, she had a hot dog for breakfast. I'm not sure if that's what she's supposed to have, but, you know, mom had an appointment, so dad was there and gave her a hot dog. and I'm winning. Okay. But that's what was interesting, is that we got to hang out and have a really, really good time. Right. And that's part of my personal vision, because I'm not going to allow my business vision to infect and invade my personal vision, because I want to be a great dad. I want my kids to know that I was around. And that's really, really important to me. So when you're defining, so my point here is that, again, create that personal vision first and foremost, and let your business vision serve your personal vision. So for you, for many of you, maybe writing serves a personal vision. That's totally fine. Just like me getting a PhD serves a personal vision. It really, I don't, at this point in my life, I'm in my 50s. I don't need that educational background. It's not going to change anything for me, but it is going to check a box for me that I wanted to do it for a while. It's a thing that's just something that I want to do for myself. So let's talk about business vision and define business vision. So I want you to, when you're thinking about this, I want you to think about this in the context of a book vision, right? How this could translate to a book. So in the business vision, when you're putting a business vision together, you're going to think of your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar. Again, if we're thinking of this in the context of a book vision, it's the same exact thing. What is the purpose of the book? What are you writing the book for? Right? Like, what is the purpose of the book? Is it to educate? Is it to entertain? Is it to make people aware? Like, what is this about? What's the core purpose of the book? If you're not clear about this, your writing is going to be all over the place. Is it to pass along a message, right? Is it going to be, again, is it to entertain, to inform? Like what is the point of it? Because if you're not clear on the point of the book when you start, it's not going to magically get more clear by the end. So if you're not really sure, that's fine. Sometimes you just have to start writing to get clear, and that's fine. But recognize that if you have beta readers or someone else reading the book and say, hey, look, I really want you to read the book, and I really want you to help me determine, like, can you tell me what the purpose of the book is? And they say, I have no idea why you wrote this book. The book doesn't make any sense to me. Right? I've read books like that. I'm like, why did I like? I'll admit I'm a bit of a book snob, but I've also, the hot dog is hilarious. Yeah, I know. Well, it was an all beef hot dog, all beef, air quotes. But the thing is, but I wanted to spend my time with my daughter, and have those things as part of my personal vision. But around the core purpose specifically, I want you to get really clear about what the purpose is of the business. Like, again, what is the book about, and what problems does that book solve? What is that book about, and what problems does it solve? Because if you're not clear about that, like I said, it's not going to magically get more clear. I want you to think about your core values. And your core values, again, if you're thinking about this from a business perspective, your core values, your business is just an extension of you. So the business core values are just an extension of you. If you're looking at your book like a business, again, the book is just an extension of you. So think about your personal core values. Why do you think, well, why? Yeah, I kind of know my values. Yeah, you might. But the thing is, for example, if you knew me in person, okay, and I'm just being honest with you here, I swear, right? I have not a loose tongue, but I'm pretty specific in my language, and I always know generally when I'm swearing. But I don't do it to the point, like, if I know it's in a specific situation where it wouldn't be appropriate to swear, I don't swear, right? But I use profanity, right? I don't want to say never. It is extremely rare that I would swear in a forum like this or from stage, right? I speak from a lot of stages. So it would be extremely rare that I would say something like that from stage. In fact, I don't want to say never, because as soon as I say never, you're going to like go find information like, I found it. But the thing is, because that violates a core value for me. And it's not because I won't swear. I mean, I'm a Marine. We know how to swear. But the point is that would misalign with a core value for me, for someone in the audience that would be turned off by me because I use profanity and they don't. So for me, impact is far more important than profanity. Do you see how there's varying layers of values? And the ones that are really, really important, the ones that will cause you to act, those are your core values. That's where I feel like the difference between a value and a core value is really, really important. So why am I defining all of this stuff? Why would that matter? Because it matters in your writing. Because some of you are going to be like, you may come to a point in your writing, you're like, oh, should I use an F-bomb here? Or Should I use more tame language? It depends. I can't tell you what's right for you isn't right for me. There's authors like Jen Sincero who wrote and she wrote all these books called the Badass Habits. Right there I go. I just swore. Right. So, but that was the name of her book, and she drops all sorts of language inside the book. I mean, heck, she even put it on the front cover of the book. Right. Well, the thing is, it's not that it's just not for me because I don't want to isolate myself from an audience, but for her it works really really well because that's who she authentically is. If you get her on stage, don't put her in front of your Sunday school. Right, because she just drops all sorts of language that you'd be like, oh my gosh, right? Like that's not what I'm about. So I just want to make sure that you understand your core values as you're heading into your writing. That is, and it would really be interesting for you to really take that time to carve that out. Your client avatar is who you're writing this for. If you're not clear on, again, on like who you're writing this for, who your audience is, it's not going to become magically more clear. So I really want you to think about these specific things as you're heading into your writing. If you've already started writing, then look back through the lens and make sure that yeah, this is specifically for that avatar. Okay. So, Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Right, exactly. By Mark Manson. There's all sorts of books right now that are putting profanity on the cover, and it just isn't something for me. Like I said, it's just I want to differentiate myself in a different way. I don't want profanity to be the thing that differentiates myself. Not to go on a tangent, but like Gary Vee. There's lots of people who are fans of Gary Vee. I like Gary Vee, but he drops so much profanity. I'm like, dude, you don't need to talk that way, right? Like he is very, very smart. And the minute he does, I'm like, come on, man. Like my kids watch you. Like I don't want, he doesn't need to be saying stuff like that, right? Because his message is really, really good. And I've noticed he's toned it down significantly in the last couple of years, especially, through his videos, online. But there was a period of time there, man. Like I just didn't want to watch him because I was like, man, I don't need that. I don't want that in my life. Right. So it's just interesting that he definitely has toned that back for sure. Um, yeah, that is exactly right, Nina. That is exactly right. That is not that is not the place for the badass book, the Sunday school. All right, so let's move on. So this is the why. Getting really clear in terms of why you're writing this book, who you're writing the book for, and what values you want it to represent for you as an author. That's fine. Like that's what I really want you to be thinking about now as you're heading into the writing. So let's talk about next, which is going to be the where. Where you write really, really matters. And you might be thinking, does it really matter that much? Look, I want you to think about where you're actually going to write because I want you to think about this in the context of where your best energy is during the day. And I can tell you, this is my office, and I don't have like an office that's in my home. Because I don't want that. So this entire building and complex that I have here is my office, and it's about 10 minutes, about 7 minutes away from my house. So I have a conference room, I have my studio, I have a garage. Like there's all sorts of different areas that I have. I have it's like a 3-bag barn that I, keep stuff in, but I've got all this stuff here that is my office. This works really, really well. I love sitting at my conference table. I've got a mug of coffee, or if it's the afternoon, I'll drink tea, or sometimes some hot apple cider or whatever it is. But I setting the environment. We're going to be talking about more about that here in just a second. But you want to try to place yourself away from distractions because it's amazing how much cleaning you want to do all of a sudden when you want to start writing, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have to go scrub the tub, and oh my gosh, and that toilet is just disgusting, right? I need to clean that. And oh, maybe I'll just go for a run or a quick walk, or maybe I'll just skip around the block, right? It's amazing how active you want to be when all of a sudden you want to write. Am I right? Am I the only person that I get massively busy when all of a sudden I have some writing to do? So it's really important that I'm paying attention to my best energy of the day, because the best time management is not about managing time. It's about managing your energy. Hear me on that. It's not about managing time. It's about managing your energy. And if there's anything that you can take away from this session, please make sure you are consistent in your writing. Please make sure that you're consistent. I don't care if you write 50 words of nonsense, but you do it every day, you will get the book done. If you don't write, it will never get done. You're sitting literally in a traffic jam of life, just waiting for that book to write itself. It won't happen. And no one's going to write it better in your voice than you. So if you want to get better at writing, then write. And I'm also, let me just pull over and park here for just a hot second on the use of AI. If you want to be a great writer, don't lean on AI. AI is ChatGPT. It's fine. It's a good tool. It might help you reword a sentence or something like that. Or, if it's like, man, like this word doesn't seem to fit. Like I've used it for that as a tool, but don't use it as a crutch. Don't use it to write your whole manuscript, because if you want to be a great writer, right? Like this is the human component. This is the human element where you can take words that you wouldn't normally use and use them in a unique way. It makes it signature you. And I've been known to have many Dolphiniisms that people often, say, because like something that I'm known to say is land the plane, right? And I've said that a lot, but I've got all these little phrases that I use. And it's not that I'm like trying to come up with a phrase. It's just because my brain is very creative, right? So I just want to make sure that people recognize that when you start using and limiting yourself to tools like that do the thinking for you, you're not going to make yourself a better writer. So if the goal is to be a better writer, then you've got to put your reps in. And I really want to encourage you to do that. So again, if it's writing a page a day, look, in not very many days, you can have a manuscript. Now, granted, it's not going to be perfect. You still have to do a lot of editing and a lot of moving around and a lot of shifting and whatever, but you can have a decent book in not much time if you're writing a page or two a day, right? So I want you to think about this. So I want you to think about where. I want you to think about where you're going to write. Again, your best energy of the day. I know for some of you, where are my ADHD prone brothers and sisters out there? Come on. I know you're out there. If I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up. All right. So for those of you who are like, if I am putting, if I'm like going to want to write and I know it's going to be a heavy topic, I will actually go to a very, very busy place. You know why? Because there's too much going on. And if you've got ADHD, and for me, I can tell you that I've done some of my best writing in a very, very busy restaurant. There was one time I was writing, I don't remember what I was writing. It might have been my very first book, The Time Wealthy Investor. And I wrote that, and I had a big fat battery on this one laptop that I had. Laptops now they're such energy hogs. But this particular laptop, I could unplug it and it would stay on for like 6 hours. The thing was amazing. But it had a big fat battery on it. And it kind of set up as a stand. So I'm typing on this thing, and I started in this, I was in this restaurant, which was also a bar. And it was Friday afternoon. I started somewhere around 3 p.m, right? And so next thing I look up, I went, and it was like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and it was busy. And I was just like, I was in this zone, right? And it was Friday night, and this bar, now it's a bar. It's no longer a restaurant, it's a bar. And it is packed in there on this Friday night. And I was like, and I looked around, and everyone's like, dude, why are you here with a laptop? Right? Well, that was, right? That's kind of me anyway. But I was getting so much done because I was so focused, and I was so hyper focused on this because there was so much kinetic stuff going on around me. That works for me because the environment was perfect. And I want you to think about that in terms of making sure that you're staging the environment and staging the environment well. So it's really important. And then you can also think about using music, but make sure the music does not have lyrics, because if it has lyrics, I know I think part of the reason why I was also so dialed in is because there was 9 different sports going on at the time. And, cause there was it was one of those places where it's got these massive screens, and all of them are on at the same time. I don't know how anybody would not their brain just wouldn't short circuit. There's TVs in the bathroom. So it's there's TVs everywhere in this place. And I was like, what in the world? Do we really need to be that connected? And it was so much going on for me that made a lot of sense. So it drowned everything else out, and it really caused me to hyper focus. This for music without lyrics also does that for me. You know what's really interesting is I found this playlist on YouTube, which is literally just the sounds of city, like a city sound. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the backup sound of a dump truck and people hollering and like cars beeping, like that kind of noise, and whistles going and things like that was the cityscape sound, and that for me it also works pretty well. So your mileage may vary, and sometimes one won't work and I'll have to flip to another one, but this is what really, really works for me. So really make sure that you're setting the stage. And here's the thing that I would do is be consistent with this. Don't think that you're going to write it like 1 in the morning and then 3 in the afternoon and then 2, then 2 in the afternoon. Like, try to set your time to do this at the same time as much as possible every day. If it means getting up a half hour early so you can brush your teeth, get your things going, and write for 30 minutes, then so be it. But I would recommend trying to do it at the same time each day, so you can set that habit. The other thing that I want you to think about is, not only where are you going to write, but I also want you to think about where you're going to save it. And you might be thinking, why is he talking about this? Yeah. So you could be writing this you could be like 50 pages in. You're on a great start. You're like, okay, yeah, cool. I think I'm like 2/3 of the way done. I think this might be maybe a 90 page or 120 page book or something like that, right? And your computer dies and you have lost everything. So I'm just telling you, don't let something like this happen. Like, I literally have like a dozen of these thumb drives because I'm flipping paranoid, and I'll keep especially when I'm getting closer on being done with a manuscript. I've got 3 different books that I'm kind of half working on right now. My main one is Leader Boss, and Leader Boss is about a boss who struggles to be a leader, right? And leaders who struggle to be a boss, right? So it's about a leader boss, and I literally save it on a thumb drive and I keep it in my safe, right? You're like, that's a little paranoid. You think that's paranoid? I also have it saved backed up to Carbonite. Because if I lose that, I'm completely screwed. I'd have to start totally over, and I don't know that I would. I don't know that I will. So I want you to think about where you're going to save it. And I know many of you millennial types and Gen Zs, you're all about using Google Sheets. Fine. Make sure you're saving it somewhere else, because you can get locked out of that. You can lose stuff like that. I just want to make sure that you think about where you're going to save it. And I want you to think about this. And tell me if this is a squirrel. Think about this for just a hot second, right? Think about where you're going to capture your ideas, because anybody else get ideas in the shower? Anybody else get ideas when you're like mowing the lawn or driving down the interstate or walking on a treadmill? Anybody else? I don't know about you, but that is absolutely true for me. And the problem with that is it's never convenient to capture the thought. Never, right? Running, yes, absolutely, Michelle. And the problem with that is, yes, shower, absolutely. I can't tell you how many businesses I've started in the shower, right? Because and the reason for that is because that's when you're in your alpha state. Your alpha state, so there's 4 basically states that we have in our cognitive levels, right? Our beta state, I'm clapping my hands to bring you out of anybody who maybe is daydreaming about, oh yeah, I'd like to take a shower, right? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm bringing you back. That beta state is your conscious beta state. Your alpha state is when you are, let me take myself down here a second. So the alpha state is when you're descending into, and I say descending, but it's really about going into more of a, more into your subconscious. Your subconscious and your cognitive beta state are kind of intermingling. And that's when you're in your alpha state. In your alpha state, you're kind of just doing something very repetitive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't take a lot of fine motor skills. You're just kind of zoning out. So what you're doing in that alpha state is your subconscious brain is kind of coming up with all these ideas. And that's where a lot of ideas come from. In fact, that's what, I think it was Ben Franklin, when he would come up with all these different ideas, I believe what he would do is he would hold a weight in his hand, like a 5-pound weight, and he would close his eyes, and as he was falling asleep, that weight would fall and it would wake him up. And that's where, and he would try to gather his thoughts in terms of what he was thinking about, and that's where he came up with so many different ideas. It's actually brilliant. And he did this, like 200 years ago? But the thing was, that's a really interesting way to access your alpha state. Well, think about this. I want you to think about when you're in the shower, can you do a quick voice narration of that idea when you're in the shower or when you're walking on a treadmill or when you're running, right? Why is that? Because what will happen is researchers have realized that you have about 37 seconds to capture that idea or it's gone forever, right? Have you ever tried to remember like, oh, that's such a good idea. I'm going to write it down as soon as I get out of the shower. And then you get out of the shower and you're like, oh, dang it. What was that idea? Dang it. It's gone. So researchers have figured out that it's about 37 seconds. So you have about 37 seconds. I mean, maybe you could like squirt it all in script letters and the shampoo, from your shampoo and try to write it. But realistically, take a quick narration or, dictation from your phone or type it in or have a pencil and paper handy. God forbid that we still do those sorts of things. But that is, Holly, Greer, you're saying, I keep my journal handy when I'm stretching and meditating. Perfect. That's exactly right. Or even when you're trying to go to bed, because again, you're descending from your beta state to your alpha state to your theta state, which is kind of your pre-sleeping state, and then into your delta state, which is when you're fully asleep. So those ideas, and when some of you are like, oh my gosh, I can't get my brain to shut up, keep a pen, not your phone, but your pen and paper with with a light, right? So like a little book light, and you can write it on a piece of paper. That's where I keep all these are my index cards, because I have them with me and I jot that stuff down, especially when I'm in bed. So, because I don't want the blue light to wake me up. So that's why I don't put it on my phone. But I just want you to know, I want you to start thinking about different ideas or different verbiage, or you're like, man, I really like that word. How could I work that word into this sentence? All right. And I want you to think about how you could do that, or this phraseology, because you're not going to be able to remember that stuff when you're actually sitting down to write. So this is the process of writing a book. It's messy. It's ugly. It's like making hot dogs, right? You're like, oh man, hot dogs might be delicious, but I don't really want to watch how they're made, right? So that's what I'm saying. This is the same way for a book. And sometimes it's really kind of put together in pieces, and that's how it ultimately comes together. Super interesting about the alpha and beta state. I always wondered. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. That's stuff that I just, that for me is brilliant. When I came to that understanding about how our brains work, it's really, really cool. Holly Greer, keep my journal handy. All right, that's excellent. I put it in my phone as I run. Not for everyone, I know. Yep, that's right, Michelle. Holly, you do as well. Full of songs and ideas. A constant backup geek. Yep, absolutely. And Nina, we are in alpha immediately upon waking too. Well, you actually, you may be. It might. So generally what happens is you go from your delta waking up, you're in theta, and then into alpha, and then ultimately into beta, right? So theta is kind of that pre-sleeping level. Like you're just waking up, like, my wife came in and woke me up one morning. She's like, hey, I need whatever it was. And like literally the house could have been on fire. And I wake up and I say something really smart like, the oranges are blue, right? Because I have no idea what she's talking about. Like I'm like acting like I'm asleep and half awake. And this is generally when my wife asks me to go buy things. Like, that's when she's in the theta state. Like, hey, Mark, can we go get, whatever. Okay. Right. So she goes out and apparently we need another coffee pot or whatever we needed, right? So that is when you're in your theta state. So I just want you to understand that this is where I want you to start thinking about how you can capture these ideas, because it's never convenient. I just want you to start thinking about that. So that's the where. Let's talk about the writing and some of the mechanics of writing. So when you start writing, I want you to think about the pace and the rhythm in advance. What are the length of the chapters? Get a sense of how long the book is going to be, and how often you're going to write. What are the metrics that you're going to track? Let me get my screen thing back up here. Okay. How often you're going to write, the pace and the rhythm in advance. Start thinking about that. The other thing is what I talked about earlier is start deciding the point or the theme before you work on it. That's going to be really important, so you don't get lost in your words. The thing is that people are like, oh, I don't want to write a long book because attention spans are too long. Anybody else hear that? I don't want to write a long book because attention spans are too long. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Be a better writer, because there's not too long. There's only too boring. And if you're a boring writer, it won't matter how long it is. You could write a paragraph and I'm not going to want to read it. So it's capturing that. Now, I'm going to talk about this for just a second because I know some of you are like thinking about different ways to write. And if you're, I tend to be a little more on the wordy side of things. And I also tend to be a little on the nerdy side of things. So I write a lot of words and I like to use big words, wordy and nerdy. Not super great if you're trying to make the thing really readable. So I had studied copywriting, and copywriting is really the idea of writing, well, it's copy. So copy is like anything you might see on a web page, anything you might see, like when people are writing copy, writing copy and ad copy is really a skill it's hard to master. But I will tell you a couple of easy things. Use shorter words and write from a 5th to 7th degree level. And if you can't say it simply, then I would question if you should say it at all. Because I will tell you, like when Steve Jobs of Apple Computer, for those of you who knew him, he knew, I mean, the man was absolutely sage. He was brilliant. And one of the things that was so brilliant about him is he knew how to take a very complex, very like crazy technological thing and boil it down to its simplest parts. And he could explain it to the average person. That's what made him so brilliant. So that's why I'm saying, like, no, you don't understand. I've got to make this thing, so complex. That's one of the things that drives me bananas in the PhD program, because I'm reading a lot of research papers and it's literally like a thesaurus threw up all over these pages. I have no idea what half the things that I'm reading. And I'm pretty gifted in that side of things. Like my vocabulary is pretty expanded and I'm reading this going, I have no idea what this says. I've read it 3 times. I still don't know what it says. And that's probably that's one of the things they say is don't write it just to sound smart. Write it so people can understand. And that's how you're going to be effective as a writer. So decide on the language too. I want you to decide, again, not only deciding on the point, but deciding on the language, meaning like, are you, like we talked about swearing or not swearing before, but the other side of this is deciding on, is it going to be formal writing or more informal writing? I'm definitely, if it's way formal over here versus informal over here, I'm probably in the middle. I'm probably a little bit skewed. I would say I'm pretty much a little bit more informal, but not super informal, because I don't want to be so formal that people are like, man, this guy's got, like he's so stiff. The writing is so stiff. I'm definitely more informal on the informal side, but I'm not that too far off center. But I use creative language in creative ways, which definitely keeps me more on the informal side. But if you are more formal, if you're writing like a trade journal, you don't want to be so informal that you lose credibility. So you have to decide on a language. Again, you may think about something around phonetics, and that's like, are you going to write, let's say that someone has a Southern drawl. Are you going to write it in Southern drawl? If there's a 4-year-old in your story, are you going to write it as the 4-year-old would say, where they mispronounce, right? Like right now, the big thing is pizza. My daughter loves pizza, right? Pizza. Well, for us, it's pizza, right? And our apocasol, right? The popsicle, right? So like for me, like forever, I think kids should name everything, quite honestly, because popsicle is way better in my mind, probably easier to spell. But the thing is, like, are you going to write it in that language, or are you going to write it the way that it's supposed to be? I just want you to think about that in terms of how your writing is, and decide that in advance, because if you wander back and forth, it's going to get very confusing for your reader. So the other thing is, I want you to decide on who your accountability partner is. Oh man. And it is not someone you're married to. Oh man. Yeah. Because if you want this thing to get done, you need an accountability partner. And it should not be the person you're married to, because no offense, this is not their job to be, whipping you like a rented mule, make sure you're getting that. But if you got someone that you're like a writing coach or someone like that, now I'm not a writing coach and I don't necessarily do that, but I'm just saying, like, I do hold people accountable when they ask me to. And there's times that when they don't ask me to, and if I'm their guy, I'm going to say, hey, how's your writing coming? Or, hey, how is your XYZ coming, with whatever it is they've been talking about. So I just wanted to make sure is you decide in advance who your accountability partner is, and you're going to say, all right, cool. Every Friday, I'm going to send you something. And what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't? What's the downside of this if you don't do it? There has to be some sort of consequence. And I'm just going to tell you, like 99.4% of people will not finish a book that they start based on a statistic that I made up. But the reality is there is probably some truth to that, because there's so many people that when I tell them I'm an author and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, I want to write a book someday. I'm like, well, I checked the calendar twice. Someday is not a day on the calendar. When are you going to write this thing, right? And that's where I want you to get really, really clear about, I'm going to do this thing at 3:00 on a Saturday. I'm going to write 2 pages at 3 p.m. at Saturday at the coffee shop. Okay, that's great. I'm going to do X thing at Y time at Z location. When you come up with that, that's called a presupposition. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do X thing at Y time at Z location, right? That sets you up for making sure that this thing is actually going to get done. So again, stay organized as best that you can. Stay organized in your thoughts, your index cards. Mind mapping software. If you've never used mind mapping software, it's kind of like if you've ever done this back. So I'm a little old school. I'm smack in the middle of Gen X, which I hated that for a while, but I'm embracing it. My inner Gen X now. But I would take index cards. And if I had a random thought, I would kind of put this down and I would kind of piece these together. Well, now they have software that does that. And MindMup, MUP, is a great, it's like $25 a year, and you can literally create different nodes and different ideas and how to stay organized, just different thoughts. And I have crafted entire courses around that. I've crafted, I have, again, writing courses and financial courses and all these other courses, because I'm a strategist. I have lots of different ideas around how I can help a certain avatar. For me, I'm avatar focused. I'm a very specific client focused. I like working with, married couples who have kids at home, who are extremely busy. Though that's kind of my avatar, and I have all sorts of different things to offer that avatar. So that's why I'm saying, again, stay organized as best you can. One of the other things that I want you to think about is future pacing and callbacks that make the writing interesting. So what I'm talking about is future pacing or callbacks is when you use, like, as discussed in chapter X, one of the things that I do is I will highlight that in the language. Okay. So you might think, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the reason why I'll do that is because I'll know when I go back, I want to make sure it's referencing the proper chapter. So if I do that, it says, hey, as I talked about, in chapter 2, when I talked about foot fungus, and you go, okay, did I talk about foot fungus in chapter 2? So I scroll back up and go, yep, chapter 2, foot fungus. Okay, scroll back down, chapter 2, right? So now I'm good to go. So if I put the 2 there, I know that it's been verified. I can take the highlight out, and now that I know that the callback is correct. The other thing is make sure that you do use citations and resources. Right now, again, for those of you who understand, like, writing at the collegiate level, like right now it's about APA 7 guidelines. Sweet mother mercy. That is awful. Look, no one's going to, like, come and shoot you because you used the wrong citation. Just make sure that you're using citations, because one of the things that bugs me about authors, especially when, like, there's several very popular authors who do this, they'll make statements like, most Americans believe X, Y, and Z. Really? Where'd you hear that from? And when you write it, people tend to believe it. So if you're going to make statements like that, like, make sure it's backed up with some sort of data. If you're saying it's your opinion, like, hey, I can't back this up with data, but it's my thought that most people would agree with X, Y, and Z. That I can get behind. It doesn't require a citation because you said it's your opinion. But just be careful about making statements that are not necessarily backed up with citations or resources. Nina, you're asking, can you repeat the name of the software for organizing info? Yes, MindMup. MindMup. Michelle, could you put that in there for me? Oleg, you're saying, I find it hard to keep the same style of writing over longer distance. Is it an issue? Yeah, it would be for the reader, right? So what I would say is making sure that you're having that continuity. So you might want to reread your stuff in advance of writing that day, just to make sure that you're staying with the same voice. Because if you're changing your voice all the time, it will get very confusing for the reader. Because again, this is about your avatar, right? You want to make sure that you're giving them what they need. And showing up for them in a way where it's consistent. Because if it's inconsistent, it's like you're reading a love story and all of a sudden aliens jump in. You're like, what in the world? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Um, my bedside journal is full of writing in the half dark. Holly Greer, I feel like you're my spirit animal, Holly. That's hilarious. She feels like it's in another language. Yeah, I totally get that. Yes, you bet, Nina. All right, yeah, mindmup.com, and it's like $25 for the paid version. It's absolutely worth it. That's like for the year. I would use writer's notes. Writer's notes is like when you're kind of in the middle of writing and you're like, hey, I want to expand this thought, and you can just kind of use an indent, highlight it, and say, I'm really thinking about the character development here. In future chapters, I want them to be married, divorced, have kids, whatever, right? You can use writer's notes, and then the writer's note gets deleted when you obviously go to publish. That way it keeps the lineage very consistent. And then consider writing as a craft. These are 3 books that I absolutely recommend. I have read 2 of the 3 of them. I have not read the 3rd one, but it's been recommended to me by a person who has helped me with my writing, and she is a very gifted author. But I love this book, Anne Lamott, Bird by Bird. She's hilarious. She's a little left of center. Okay, she's actually very left of center, but I really like her style of writing. She's very funny, but I really like her writing. It's actually about writing. Stephen King on writing. Now, for those of you, I am not a Stephen King fan. Like, I don't like, it's like I'm an empath. So like that would make me criminally insane if I did that, read his books. But the other one that I like, so it is not about that. It's actually all about his writing and the way that he writes. And the last one is the one I have not read, on Writing Well by William Zinsser. So these 3 books right here, if you want to take a quick screenshot, these books are really, really good, and especially about more help with your writing style and just your writing craft. All right, so let's get to the, we're kind of getting a little long here, so I'm going to try to get this, the most important thing, this is it, promotion. You do not want to wait until the book is published before you start promoting it, because if you do, one of the things that, like, I've already started promoting Leader Boss, and people are thinking, well, I put it out on social media, I put it out on this. I don't have, like, this is part of in the paid course around the promotion piece, but here's the thing, like, you have to start promoting it early, like a year out. More is better. If you're waiting to like, oh, hey, I'm publishing it in 2 weeks. Okay, great. What do you want me to do with that? So I would say, realistically, if you're going to start promoting your book, you have to, like, that is marketing 100%. And if you're going to rely on you self-publishing and promoting it yourself, you really need to get someone to help you, especially if you don't understand marketing. So I'm just letting you know, like, you need to start this early, and you need to make sure that you're doing it. You're not going to wait until the last minute, because you might take like snippets of the book and release prior. That's what I do. And that's what I did with Time Wealth, The Advantage. And that book sold like right out of the gate. And I've got a lot of people buying that book now. It's a good book. Like, I'm not saying it's a good book because I'm saying it's a good book. I'm saying it's a good book because it delivers for the reader what they want. Right. And for small business owners who are really struggling with time, wealth, and being and having control over their calendars. So you could release little like paragraphs at a time, or even you narrating it and releasing that again on social media, on other ways. But I just want to make sure that you have got to make sure that you're promoting it and promoting it well. The last piece here is about the actual publishing. Now, there are so many little nuances around publishing. There's things that you can do. You can either work with an agent, you can self-publish, or you can use a hybrid model. I have never worked with an agent, although I have come pretty close to working with an agent. And I was like, it really doesn't work for me because I don't really want to give up the rights to my book, or to the intellectual property, because that's basically what you're doing is you're selling intellectual property. I chose to self-publish, and that's what I'm very familiar with. And that works for me because I already have an audience. I already have a platform. That took a while to build. And has it been worth it? Yeah, but it's a grind. I'm not saying, oh, it's so easy. It's work, right? So you're either, I'm just telling you, you're either going to pay for it in time, you're going to pay for it in money. The hybrid model is where you work with you don't really necessarily work with an agent, but you work with a kind of a publishing company, and you kind of retain some rights. You it just depends on what they do. You just have to recognize that whatever you don't pay for in dollars, you give up in control. So just understand that there's a, you go full bore publisher. They may pay you in advance. I just decided not to do that. So that for me just was not what I wanted to do. May I change that? Maybe down the road. We'll see. But I haven't, that works for me for right now. And there's lots of ways you can find agents. You could literally Google them. And I would talk about interviewing a lot of them, but just make sure that it's a good fit. But if you are going to self-publish, this is where you're going to be in charge of the book cover design. The book cover is the last thing that should be decided. Okay. You want to do the title, and you want to make sure that the subtitle is next. So you want to test the title. And the way that you test the title, and I've done this, and I know that there's people on this call who've seen me do this. Once I got the title determined, like for the Time Wealthy Advantage, I knew I was calling it the Time Wealthy Advantage, because passing along the Time Wealthy, that was really important to me, because I already controlled the narrative. People knew that I'm the guy who helps people manage not their time, but manage their energy, right? And having a better relationship with time. So, because that's the one great universal. And the people who are most time weary are business owners. I get it, right? They that resonates with them. So I didn't have to test that too much. But I did test the subtitle, the subheading, right? Because if you look at this, actually I was going to show you this here. These are two subheadings that are subtitles that I tested. So the Time Wealthy Advantage, a business owner's 5-step strategic blueprint to freedom. That was one. Then I said, okay, between these two, which one do you like? Do you like A, which is a business owner's 5-step strategic blueprint to freedom, or do you like B, a business owner's strategic blueprint to freedom, right? You might think, well, are they different? Yeah. One has 5-step in it and one doesn't. And they vote, right? Well, I like this. And then I just kind of create like a winner's bracket. So that's what I would do. And then I would go on, and then I would try, well, how about a strategic approach to building the life and business you want? How about that one, right? And I tested it. And eventually it came down to a winner's bracket where 70% of the people chose, the particular one, which I believe it was, if I'm remembering right, it was this last one here, a strategic approach to building the life and business you want. That's the one I decided on. So again, and I would literally just text it to people I knew who were my avatar. I wouldn't text it to someone who I knew was not my avatar, someone who doesn't read books ever, right? Or someone who's not in business for themselves. Cause I want to make sure that I'm asking my avatar, hey, if you're going to be writing a book for 17 or 14-year-old boys, wouldn't it make sense to ask other 14-year-old boys? It wouldn't make sense to ask a boomer. That makes no sense. Make sure you're asking your avatar. Make sure you're asking your people who are members of that audience. When you are actually publishing, I recommend Amazon or KDP. I know that there are other book publishers out there. They make it about as easy as you can possibly make it. I really have worked with them well. I mentioned the paid course earlier. The paid course walks you through all of that. There's 3 main pages on KDP when you upload, what things to actually fill in, what's really critical, what's not critical. Also, if you're going to you have to get an international standard book number, and it's called an ISBN. I recommend getting your own, but you can have Amazon assign an ISBN, but understand that you give up some rights if you do that. So if you're looking for wider distribution outside of Amazon, and you want your book to get picked up by libraries and bookstores and things like that, my recommendation is get an ISBN from Bowker. And it's such a racket. You can buy one ISBN for $150, or you can buy 5 for $200. Yeah, I just buy the package, right? It just makes sense. And books tend to be like tattoos anyway. You don't ever wind up with just one. So I'm just saying, you can go to Bowker, BAWKER.com, and that is where you can get your ISBN. It's super easy to actually fill it in. And again, I show you that in the course, or you can just go, look up some courses or look up a video on YouTube and you can figure out how to do that. Audible is a lot. And I don't want to tell you, for those of you who plan on putting out an Audible, in terms of narrating the Audible, it's a lot of work. Holy crap, that's a lot of work. My Audible was just shy of 7 hours for the Time Wealthy Advantage. Wow, that was a lot of work. And I just want to let you know that it might be better if you were going to work with a sound engineer. I did my own sound engineering, and you can do it on your own. I have obviously a mic, I've got a setup for it, but I'm just telling you, man, it's a ton of work, and you have to do the sound engineering because you can't have the peak levels go too far outside of the range, and otherwise Audible will not accept it. They will also not accept it unless you have an ebook. And if you don't have an ebook, you cannot upload the Audible. I didn't know that. I had done all the videos or all the video files, or I'm sorry, Audible files. I uploaded all those audio files, and then they said, "Well, you don't have an ebook, you can't publish this." I was like, "What?" The reason being is because they use the chapter headings that are the links, that are the hyperlinks in the ebook, and they connect that to the Audible. I didn't know that. So if that's your plan, you just make sure that you also do the ebook. And if you're, not sure how to do that, again, you can do that. But again, that's also in the advanced course if you're interested. Book revisions. If you are planning on doing any revisions or anything like this, just understand that, look, if you're putting something out there with the idea that you may have a revision later on, just know that it's going to take a while for revisions. Like if you upload a revision to, like you say that you upload the book and then you realize there's an error, it may take a while for the revision to actually come through. So I just want to make sure that you, there are some pre-printed versions that once you go to print in KDP or in Amazon, they print a stock of them, and it may take a while for revisions to work themselves through, even if they're the same edition. And then finally, the limitations of editors. I want you to recognize, guys, there's some editors that are good. Some of them are just going to look for grammar and spelling mistakes. They are not going to necessarily connect continuity. They may not detect faults in the plot line. They may not be able to capture that stuff. So you have to recognize the limitations of editors because they're not looking for that. It's like look around the room for things that are red, right? And all of a sudden you don't realize how many things were blue. You understand? That's the way the reticular activating system works in our brains. So I just want to make sure that you recognize the limitations of editors. That's why you should use beta readers. And beta readers are people that you can either pay or not pay, and just say, "Hey, here's a copy of my manuscript. Can you read it?" And they're going to read it, and for the idea that they're going to give you feedback. They're not editing it. They're just giving you feedback on the plot lines, and that's a difference between a beta reader and an editor. An editor is really just kind of checking for, they should be checking for plot lines and making sure that this makes sense and tying things back. I'm just going to tell you, they're human, and they're probably editing several books at the same time. There's going to be limitations around that. All right, we are pretty much done here. That is everything that I have. I just want to make sure that you guys, again, I'm not here to try to, hold on a second, promote anything. If you are interested in the free course, Michelle's going to go ahead and put this up. If you're interested, you can find the access to this at strategicboardroom.com, and then go in to strategicboardroom.com. There's courses and logins at the top right, and you can find where it says, just scroll all the way down, where there's free courses in there. She went ahead and put that in there. The paid course is not in there yet, but it will be probably by the end of today, because that's getting ready to drop. So if you are right now, the price for that is $17. So, I don't know. It's not very expensive at all. That's the paid course that she just put up right there. That is not the right one. I think, nope, I must have put the wrong one. Nope, maybe that is right. I'll tell you what, we'll send it to you if that isn't right one. I'm not sure if that's, yeah, that doesn't look right. It says paid money course. Anyway, we'll figure it out. But I just want to make sure that you guys have access to it. But if you go into the free course, at the end of the free course, you can scroll all the way down and access the paid course. So that way, and you're getting the same things, right? So if you want to do it that way, Messenger changes it a little. Yeah, that's probably what happens. So we'll just ignore that one for right now. And that way we don't have to worry about it. So if you go into the free course, the paid one is all the way, just scroll away all the way to the bottom, and you can access the paid course that way. And of course, we'll put the login information on there. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I know this was a lot of mechanics and stuff like that. And I just love teaching this section because I am an avid writer and reader and just word nerd. And I'm really interested in seeing what you guys put out there. So have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Nice to meet you, Holly Greer, my neighbor. You're more than welcome. Oleg. You bet, Oleg. You bet, Sandra. Have a great day, guys.